Steel Curtain Network.
Touchdown! Touchdown para Calvin Austin! El Monte Washington es arma. ¿Quién más? ¿Quién más? DJ Watt!
What is going on, Steeler fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Steelers Preview. I'm Jeff Hartman, joined by Bryan Davis and Dave Schofield. Dave, what's up? How's it going?
Hey, it's going. Not much happening with the Steelers other than 17 more players being added to the Pro Bowl. So doesn't really do much for me. It's off season.
All right, Bryan Davis, what's up?
I'm very disappointed with you fellas because all these guys have been added to the Pro Bowl, and I took some precious time out of my life to completely mimic the way the Steelers go ahead and advertise their Pro Bowl guys. And I put a picture of me in full uniform, and not a single word was said. Not even a Jeff's patented LOL.
Yeah, there were so many different. There were Dave. Do you have the picture? Are you bringing it up?
No, I don't have it
up on your screen. If he's going to talk about it, bring it up.
I was going to say I can find it, but to me,
you have to look.
The only thing that came to my mind was a song by Styx, and it wasn't Renegade. It was Too Much Time on My Hands.
See, I thought of the kick heard around the world when he was in his Mike Mitchell jersey and his Finney pants at the time. It was a Joe Hayden, I think, but I kept calling it a Mike Mitchell jersey. So I'm pretty sure that was what it was, but that's what it reminded me of. And there's so many different directions I could have gone. I was like, I'm just going to let that one go. But we'll bring that up in the second half. I'll bring it up and share the image on the screen.
I have it if you want it now.
Sure, if you want to for those watching live or in replay.
I mean, it's hard to see the screen very well, but.
And by the way, I did it during in between calls on my sales job. I made it look just like a tweet too.
He made it look just like a tweet. That's the best we can do.
Is that a Marcus Gilbert jersey?
Worse, it's a Broderick Jones.
Oh my.
I don't know if it's worse yet. Okay. All right. So we'll get into the news in terms of the Pro Bowl games. We'll do that in the second half. There's some stuff that we want to talk about, sure, but we're not going to start off the show with that. We're going to start off the show with the title of the show, which is evaluating the Steelers organization from top to bottom. Now, I was the one that crafted this title and threw it out to the guys to see what they thought. And the reasoning behind it was this week, myself included, I know everyone has had an opportunity to talk about on Monday afternoon when Art Rooney II spoke to the media. And it always kind of irks me how no one knows anything about it. This isn't a real press conference. It's just a select group of media. And then all of a sudden Twitter starts going berserk and you're getting rapid fire tweets about what Art Rooney is saying or said, because I think they do this after the fact. But it has caused a lot of people to really start to question not just Mike Tomlin, not just the coaches that he hires, not just the roster that they put together, but from the very, very top. And so I think this is a worthwhile discussion to have relating to an evaluation in this offseason. And we're just fans, but we can do this to evaluate the Steelers from top to bottom, from ownership all the way down to roster development. And let's start with Art Rooney II. Let's start with the man that signs the checks, still the majority owner. I know there's minority owners, but still the majority owner. Dave, I'll start with you. If you were to evaluate Art Rooney, we don't know the ins and outs necessarily. We've heard some stuff. We don't know everything. From an outsider's perspective, what is your takeaway on Art Rooney? Not just what he said this week, but in general.
In general, my overall, just mean him as team president / owner.
That's right.
I'm going with that. This is a business first.
Okay.
It's not about you. It's almost like you take the winning and the culture and everything else with this franchise for granted. It's really the business, because as I heard, I think it might have been Tim Benz or someone who said it. I can't remember, because I was listening to something that he was on earlier today that said, remember, the Rooneys aren't one of these owners that they have their money somewhere else. that they're making it through tech or this or that or the other thing. They only make their money because of the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's not that they're because they've been around for so long doing this. It's not that there's some billionaire that also owns a sports team. They have to make their family money through the Pittsburgh Steelers. So when I look at some of these decisions, I'm like for example, there's no limit and there's no minimum on what you can spend on coaches. Well, there is what it is what you spend on players. So that's why that's somewhere that they might cut and not pay as much in order to do those kind of things. So to me, I got the real feeling of, that some of the things that make the Pittsburgh Steelers what they are is somewhat taken for granted. And it's really about making sure you're in the business of turning a profit with this franchise.
Before I throw it to Bryan, I will say that I believe that Art Rooney and that sect of the Rooney family, they own like 51% of the Pittsburgh Steelers. The other 49 were sold. So you want to talk about turning a profit? They've turned a hell of a profit. Now, some of them were like his uncle, who was Dan's brother. He had to sell because of the horse racing, which is hysterical now that the NFL would force them to get out of all that stuff. The Rooney family obviously made a lot of money in the horse racing industry, but they've made a lot of money off the Steelers. Their Steelers are, I believe the last evaluation was over $1.5 billion in terms of the worth of the franchise. So I see what you're saying, and I'm not disagreeing. I just want to make that up, but not make that up, but say that, bring that up. Bryan, what's your take?
Well, first of all, I went to 2 games this season, and I know just as one person how much I dropped out of my wallet into the Steelers. Just that the one big pro shop that they have down there, the money that they are pulling in every single game is absurd. So for that to be, well, we've got to pinch some pennies so we could turn a profit and field a team. No, that I don't really take stock in that whatsoever. You know, when you hire coaches and bring coaches in, look at what the Ravens did today. My gosh, they brought in another head coach, former head coach, Chuck Pagano, a guy that is going to be an assistant defensive backfield coach, and it will make a difference. They brought Dean Pease in the middle of the year, and their defense went to one of the worst to one of the best, just like that overnight. The Steelers saw 2 different Ravens defenses this year. One in the first game and one in the second and third game. So no, this whole pinching pennies and not paying coaches and not having all the stuff to your disposal means that you are not as serious about winning as you say you are. This whole leaving a coach to just go ahead and sit there for no reason. Like we talked about it with an offensive line coach from 2013. We talked about that the other day. I think that was off mic. I believe that was in our Slack channel. We talked about
Adrian Clem. Is that what you're talking
about?
Oh,
no, that was Bryan. That was you and I on the phone.
Oh, that was Dave and I. I'm sorry.
No, we were talking about it. No, it was before. It was because I brought it up on Scobro show, but couldn't remember the name. Bryan actually figured it out for me. It was the coach the year before Mike Munchak came in. They basically paid him, or they basically took away all of his responsibilities. Would like to have a reason to fire him, but he just kept coming in, so they would have to pay him.
John Kugler?
No, John Bankhead or something.
Bad had looked it up at the time. I'm like, yeah, that's it. I mean, it's so much so, and they did let him go at the end of the season, but yeah.
But they basically, and Dave was saying they basically wanted this guy to quit, so they gave him nothing to do, and he's like, no, I'm just gonna stick around. So you pay me and can't not pay me. So this attitude, this kind of strategy, to me, is a whole bunch of malarkey. And I'm not talking about Mike. I'm talking about the fact that this is inexcusable for an owner to go ahead and not take care of his team. Because you know what? When you take care of a coaching staff and you do everything you can to win, you know what happens? You add more money to your franchise. You add more money in the offseason. You add more money in the postseason. You add more free agents, more people that want to play for you. So right now, if you become a penny pinching owner, then guess what they do? They go ahead and do, some publication is going to do rankings on the best situations, and free agents will look at that. Not free agents, they won't look at it. Their agents of the free agents will look at it and they'll say, stay away from there. And if you don't think that's true, you're just delusional, because that's exactly what happens. It starts at the top. We want to blame Tomlin for everything. Tomlin is controlled by Art Rooney II. I'm not saying Tomlin gets no blame in this, because he will when we talk about him. But it starts at the top, and when Tomlin basically has to beg the guy to let Matt Canada go last year, that is an indictment.
I'm going to bring up a comment because I think it's fair. There's one person to blame for the finance. Dave talked about turning a profit. John S. said this, and I think it's spot on, that Brian Davis is buying Chinese knockoff jerseys instead of the pro shop jerseys. That's what has sunk this team financially. Brian, what the hell are you doing? You're killing the Steelers.
I'm the scapegoat. I'm to blame. I'm done. No more. I promise.
That's
no more this week.
The next shipment that's coming in. I would love to have been a fly on the wall in the postseason meeting between Art Rooney and Mike Tomlin. We know they had a meeting, those two together. And I would have loved to hear what Art said. Because the one thing is, like, Brian, you bring up good points, and Dave, you bring up good points too. The one thing we don't want is an owner that is going to try and inject his thoughts and opinions on how to run a team when he really doesn't know what he's doing. I think it's safe to say that this guy doesn't know what the hell he's doing when it comes to running a team. He just doesn't have the vision of his father, and that's just the way it is. But at what point is he going to say, okay, Mike, you're telling me you trust in this coaching staff. All right, I'm going to believe in you, but at the same time, it's going to be a short leash. I want to see if Art Rooney is maybe just, I don't know, is going to allow Omar Khan, who I think is very aggressive, mind you. I think he is very aggressive in nature. You look at the trades that were made last offseason. I think you look at the way that he likes to manipulate the draft, and sometimes it's patience and sometimes it's aggressiveness, but nonetheless, is he going to give him the green light to make some moves? That's the thing that I want to see, because I don't want a Daniel Snyder. I don't want a David Tepper down in Carolina. I don't want that type of owner with the Steelers. And if that's what you're trying to want, that's what you're wanting is a meddling. I don't want that at all. But I want Art to be able to say to the guys, listen, I think we need to be aggressive this offseason. We have a lot of cap space. Let's go out and get some guys. Let's be more, aggressive in the first wave of free agency. If we feel that the person is perfect for our system, let's be aggressive in the trade market. If we want to trade someone, and let's trade, if we think it's worthy to trade draft capital, so be it. I would almost be okay if Art Rooney said, okay, we're going to keep a small coaching staff, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. But we're also going to change more of our offseason mentality and to be a little bit more aggressive. I would be okay if that was what happens. We'll have to wait and see. But Dave, anything else before we move off of Art Rooney?
Yeah, and I mean, to me, this is directed at the one problem. Well, not the one problem. I can't just say it was just one. But the biggest problem that I had from that press conference that he did, or the time with the media that we got reports from, was the whole idea about the coaching staff. Basically saying that they're not adding to it. They're not adding more, and they're not really letting anybody go because no one's contracts are up. So to me, that's what this is all about. You can't spend more on players or less on players. I mean, you have the salary cap. It is what it is. So that's going to be what it is. But where you can make a difference is if you really want to get the most out of your team. It's about getting the best coaches, or even more coaches in some case. I mean, if you need 2 more assistant wide receiver coaches just because you have to be able to know how to handle George Pickens. You almost have to have someone follow him around and build him up like some of the captains were doing. I know Jeff was talking about that in his Monday morning conversation on Let's Ride this week. That if you're doing that, why not be able to at least be open to that whole idea? But it felt like I felt a disconnect between Tomlin's end of the year press conference with what he was saying and then what Art Rooney was saying. It was almost like they were telling each other, Mike saying, this is what I want, and Art Rooney saying, nope, this is what you're going to deal with, through a press conference, rather than just actually the thing that there's something that needs to be happening there. We need to look at changes. And like people said, even adding more. And it seemed like that was more shut down by Art Rooney, and we know that history of how of handling coaches and not wanting to fire a coach and pay their salary. Then the report comes out of the Steelers defensive coordinator not even making $1 million in a season. No wonder they don't have a better defensive coordinator if you're not going to be willing to pay one. So that's my frustration there. Is it doesn't. People want to complain about the coach. Now, I know Mike Tomlin's getting compensated well, and maybe that's why they're not willing to spend otherwise. So I don't know that there's a good answer. To me, the attitude about that just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Sorry, I'm done talking about that.
That's fine. Brian, thoughts?
Yeah, I think a lot of these reasons, and that was what I was trying to get to when Dave said about not firing them because the coaching staff still has time left and he wants to keep them on. That's what I was mentioning in that whole diatribe as well, but also thinking that a coaching staff is not the problem and being fine with mediocrity. I'll get to this more when we talk about Mike Tomlin, because Mike Tomlin, there's some blame to Mike Tomlin, but I think a lot of the way Mike Tomlin operates is because he has to, not because he wants to.
Okay, well, let's do that. Let's talk about Mike Tomlin.
Yep.
And let's just talk about Mike Tomlin and the coordinators at this point. So we'll just kill three birds with one stone, technically.
4.
If we're about 4, yeah, I always forget Danny Smith. If you're just, again, outsider's perspective, evaluating the organization, and we're now at the coaches and coordinators mainly, what are your thoughts, Dave?
Yeah, I think the Steelers made a mistake with stuff with defense. I still think the biggest reason Terrell Austin was I loved what KT Smith was saying on your Monday morning conversation. If you didn't catch that on Let's Ride on Monday, make sure you go back and catch that show. But about how Terrell Austin wasn't even viewed as like a coordinator around the NFL. But to me, part of it was, I think Minka liked him and they wanted to keep Minka at the time and keep him happy. That could have been a factor. I mean, because you can't say that players haven't influenced coaching decisions in the past. I mean, just look at the Steelers offensive coordinators and everything with Ben Roethlisberger. There was a lot of influence there. So I think the mistake is that you have a head coach that is defensive minded, but what's his specialty? It was the secondary. You've got a defensive coordinator who, what was his specialty? It was the secondary. And I think we're seeing that come back to haunt the Steelers 2 years removed now from where they at least had a senior assistant in Brian Flores who could help out with some of the other stuff up front that I think they're just lacking there. That there's not enough, not enough diversity there. I am all right with Arthur Smith right now because of 1 year in, you've got to figure this out. And I keep saying it's not like he had a whole lot of weapons. I even wrote an article for SteelCurtainNetwork.com about the Steelers need to have more weapons on the field when they use up their 5 eligibles. Stop wasting it so much with the Michael Pruitts and the Ben Skoroneks and even the Van Jeffersons that aren't really threats. You need threats, more threats. So maybe give him some more tools to work with, because I think they maximized everything that they could earlier in the season and then had nothing left to really tweak it, like Coach Smith was talking about. So that kind of hits the coordinators. I'm not worried about special teams. You got the best kicker in the league. That has to come from something. But really, when it comes to Coach Tomlin, I would love for him to give up more to his coaches. The problem is, in order to do that, you have to have enough coaches. So that's why and someone said, well, in the live chat, I don't even know who it was. I just saw it in there that said, well, it doesn't matter if you have more coaches if Coach Tomlin doesn't let them coach. But that's kind of what Bryan was alluding to, is maybe there's not enough coaches that he can, that he has to do more because he has less that's there. How can you delegate if you don't have enough to delegate to? Whether that's really a big issue or not. And remember, it's not always just quantity, it's also that quality as well. So I'm trying to remember what I was supposed to try to be getting at, just evaluating the head coaches. I am one of those people that feel like that the 2025 season is really going into it, showing that if it's time for the Steelers and Coach Tomlin to go their separate ways, I know a lot of people are already there. There's no reason talking about whether that's good or not because it's not happening. But I really think that that's going to be something that's a storyline throughout the season of whether it's still the right fit for both places. And that does extend down to at least the offensive and defensive coordinator from there.
All right, Bryan, thoughts on Tomlin and his main coaches?
All right, here we go. Let me start off with Arthur Smith. And I am going to bring up Kevin Smith as well on Here We Go, the Steelers show. If you didn't get a chance to check that show out, please go back and check out that show because, my gosh, I tell you what, I mean, I might claim to be a Steeler expert. I know nothing when it comes to being on a show with Kevin Smith. I just sit there and I absorb. He is absolutely phenomenal, the way he breaks everything down. And one thing that he brought up the other day on our show to me is, look, you had Justin Fields. He was 4-2. However, he was 4-2 with an offensive scheme that was not built for him. He was 4-2 with an offensive scheme built for Russell Wilson. I would like to see what Justin Fields would look like if he does come back with an Arthur Smith design scheme for Justin Fields. I think that would be great. So I want to see what Arthur Smith could do. I'd like to see him do it with more of a QB1 in mind, not a competition or not a placeholder for Russell Wilson when he comes in against the Jets, when he's fully healthy from the blocking sled debacle. As far as Terrell Austin, I think that they brought in a guy that was coming from one of the worst defenses in the league, the Cincinnati Bengals, and plugged him in. There were things that were good. There were things that weren't. Then Brian Flores came in. He was not the defensive coordinator. So for those of you that think that he was the defensive coordinator, let me give you a myth. He was brought in to give him an opportunity. He was in football. I don't even want to call it football purgatory. He was in football hell. Nobody wanted to touch him. The Miami Dolphins screwed him over and made him look toxic. Mike Tomlin and the Rooneys threw him a lifeline. And in 1 year, he did a lot of things that were noticeable that teams wanted him. Myth number 2. Mike Tomlin chased Brian Flores away. He did not. He was brought in so he can go ahead and get another job. They had Terrell Austin there, and they were fine with it. Some of Brian Flores' coaching as an assistant head coach kind of helped make Terrell Austin look better. Let's go on to Mike Tomlin. And myth number 3. Mike Tomlin does not want to have a coach outshine him. I know you all think that. I know you think that he's this egocentric dictator. That's not true. He wants success there. It doesn't matter if they outshine him. As the head man, you're still going to get all of the accolades. So if you have assistant coaches under you that are succeeding, then you are fine. It does not hurt your legacy whatsoever. It builds your legacy even more. But the biggest problem goes back to that conversation we were having earlier. He's not allowed to have the head coaches. Now, I'm going to get to my big con on Mike Tomlin in a second, but the final myth I want to talk about here, it's that only thing Mike Tomlin cares about is that winning record and that streak. Dave and I talked about this on the phone the other night. Come on. Now, if you've watched this guy throughout the years, that's a byproduct of it. He's not going to the Hall of Fame due to a streak. This is about as important as the Baltimore Ravens and their preseason winning streak that was snapped last year. It was like 25, and they acted like it was the biggest thing in the world. Mike Tomlin's never mentioned that streak. Mike Tomlin doesn't care about that streak. Yeah, you know what? That's just rhetoric. I know you want to bring that stuff up because you want this guy out so badly. You can taste it, and you think about it at parties when you should be having fun. You think about how badly you want Mike Tomlin gone. Now, here's my problem with Mike Tomlin. I think all of that is just talk. The biggest problem with Mike Tomlin is also the biggest problem with Art Rooney II, and it's stubbornness. You've heard me use that S word for the longest time and a lot recently. You know how you have the word of the year every year, and at the end of the year, somebody comes out with what the word of the year was. It was like gaslighting one year. I forget what it was this year, but my word of the year right now is stubbornness when it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Mike Tomlin is not adapting. He thinks his system is working. We saw this with Chuck Noll. We saw some very bad years in the 80s and those 2 years in the early 90s when the game passed him by. I'm not saying the game has passed Mike Tomlin by, but the game has passed his scheme and his ideas by. They are playing a different style of game. He talks about varsity and junior varsity. He's got a junior varsity scheme, and he keeps on thinking that it is going to be fine. It's fine for so long that people like me go ahead and buy into it around week 10 saying, hey, it's working. Then all of a sudden it's not anymore. So that's what my biggest problem is. But like Dave said earlier, there's nothing we can do right now because here's the deal. He is here. So we either have to get on the boat and hope that the captain of the ship will kind of change his thinking. If not, we're just going to be on the shore crying again.
You guys, I mean, there's not much I can add to what you all said because I agree with everything that you all said, and you guys did a great job doing it. I'm only going to say this. We had at SteelCurtainNetwork.com an article that ran Thursday morning at 8 o'clock by our writer, Jason Murphy. And it said Art Rooney II and Mike Tomlin need less words and more actions. And that's exactly where I am with this whole situation. I talked about how Art Rooney could allow Omar Khan and Andy Weidel to be a little bit more aggressive. I'm sick of listening to Mike Tomlin talk. Ever. Like, honestly, the next time he talks, it'll be in February at the owners' meeting. I don't even care what he has to say because it means nothing. I don't care what he says. I want to see it happen on the football field. So I would really love to see him go to Arthur Smith since he's staying and say, Arthur, man, we need to get with the times. We need to figure out a way to do this. We got to, once they pick a quarterback, let's just say it's Justin Fields. It's who everyone's talking about. Okay, you got to build an offense that is getting us into the 2025 era of the NFL. And when I see it, work correctly on the football field, then I'll say, job well done. On the defensive side, everyone's been talking about the Julian Edelman clip. If you didn't see it, I shared it on my Twitter recently where Julian Edelman said, oh my gosh, the Steelers. He goes, they've never changed. Okay, so until
he said it after KT Smith said it on your podcast, though.
And KT even went back. KT has a lot of free time on his hands since he's retired. He went back and looked at film from the last time they played in New England, and he pointed to it. It's like, look, he's not lying. Like, this isn't Julian Edelman trying to get Steeler fans riled up. This is actually happening. So until I see the Steelers start to get into the absolute welcome to the 2025 era of NFL football, and I see it and it's sustainable, then I'll say good job, Mike Tomlin. But I'm so sick of hearing the guy talk. We hear Art Rooney talk once a year. I'm sick of hearing his mouth too. I'm sick of everyone talking. Sometimes I'm sick of myself talking. I feel like a broken damn record. So for me, I look at this and say, we are all so frustrated beyond all means and comprehension right now. That's how frustrated we all are. And for those fans out there that listen to our shows, trust me, we are as frustrated as you are with how things just never change. So I'm done listening to these blowhards until something actually changes. That's it. No more lip service. Just fix it. And if you don't fix it, that's when Art Rooney has got to be a man and say, we got to get rid. We got to start over. Like, I think this is a crucial year. You guys agree or disagree, Dave?
It should be. I don't know that it will be.
You're right. It should be. It should be, but it might not be.
You know, and you, I mean, I understand last year there was a lot of changes, but some of those changes you knew were only going to be temporary, like with everything with the quarterback position. So and they're not, and they just don't have the same options to improve it this year. So that's why you might just have to go with what you can. But kind of going along with what I did on the first well, I can't remember, was it unpopular opinion, that Mike Tomlin, and I actually heard I can't remember where I heard it this week, but it's the whole idea of Mike Tomlin gets more out of his players than he should. But you have to also realize the reason he has to get more out of his players than he should. Like I said, the Steelers overachieved this year. They did more than what they should have. But the problem is he's also a huge part of the reason that they have a bunch of players that really shouldn't even win 10 games. Wow, they have a bunch of players that should only win 7 or 8 games, and they managed to win 10. But you're also a big part of why you only have the players to, that quality of players to win that many games. So, and that's something that we ought to remember with a lot of these things. With these coaches, there are some things that are their strengths and some things that are their weaknesses. And there are some things that Mike Tomlin does phenomenally, but there are also other things that he's on the short end of the stick. I wish that they would have more people to help him cover his weaknesses. That's just me.
All right, Bryan, final thoughts there?
Yeah, let's go back to one of the few things that I agreed with that Art Rooney II said in that press conference was, we need to have a quarterback here for more than 2 years. These 1-year contracts right now for a team that is not ready to win it all, they're not helping this team. And Dave kind of mentioned that a little bit in there too. That's what I got out of it when he was talking about you're only having a guy for a few years. I mean, 1 year, and they're not going to be around with these changes. You've got to have either 2 or 3 year deals. Sometimes I think 2-year deals aren't enough. I don't think the Steelers right now could benefit from giving prove-it deals right now.
Yeah.
Because you have a quarterback situation right now. We're all talking that, hey, Justin Fields is the guy. I don't know if Justin Fields wants to come back.
It'll be very telling, and I figured we could save this till next week, talking about roster development from a organizational standpoint. It'd be really telling to see if they can lock up a quarterback before free agency starts, Russell Wilson or Justin Fields, either one. Because if they could do that, if they get Justin Fields to sign on the dotted line before the new league year starts, that means the man wants to be here. Because or else he would say, no, I'm going to wait and see what my market value is, and then we'll talk. So we'll see what that happens. I don't know. We shall see. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back after the break, we're going to hit on some news that's going on with the Steelers, do some memories and some trivia. We'll be right back. All right, Steeler fans, welcome back. Thank you for watching live. We didn't go anywhere. For those on the audio side, thank you for hearing a word from our sponsors. Let's talk about the news. I think the news that got me the most was not the Pro Bowl. We'll talk about that in a second. Did you guys hear the news about Kevin Colbert? This was in our Slack channel. I wrote the article for SteelCurtainNetwork.com. Pretty interesting. Not the fact that he's going to Colorado State as a consultant. A lot of colleges are now hiring football GMs to actually help manage their NIL spending and the roster development side of things, because with the transfer portal, it's like free agency. And so that makes sense. I guess for me, I thought that he had a job with the Steelers, at least after his first year after the 2022 draft, when he was done with alumni relations or something along those lines. I guess he's not doing that. I couldn't find anything on the website for him. But Dave, what was your thoughts when you saw the news on Kevin Colbert?
I don't know that it's really that big of a deal. I honestly, I was going to ask you, we're going to write a story about this, because I honestly didn't think it was anything honestly important. I'm like, the guy retired from the Steelers. If he's going to be a consultant, I bet he's not even going to be. How often would he even be around? Isn't it just because he's part of some consultant firm that they are using? Or I'm not sure exactly how I read it, because I didn't care enough. But to me, it's like, if he still wants to do something with football and not have to be around doing a bunch of stuff every day, and just be like, hey, they want to fire a question to you. All right, go ahead. What is it? Or if it's something like that, it just didn't move the needle for me at all.
Okay. Bryan?
Yeah, congratulations to Kevin. I'm glad he has an opportunity. I guess those alumni relations with Joey Porter helped a whole heck of a lot. So he is the Colorado State. He's in Colorado State. Go Rams.
Yeah. I was curious, because I always wondered, when Kevin Colbert retired, was this I want to retire, or was it the Steelers saying you're going to retire? That was always a question I had, because there were times I didn't think Kevin Colbert necessarily wanted to step away. The Steelers kind of wanted him to step away. We know the Steelers have done this with players a lot in the past, Hines Ward, even Troy Polamalu. And so it struck me as, wow, this is interesting. The guy took 2 years off, and now he's kind of getting back in the game, although it's a different game, but still, I thought it was interesting. The other news that I wanted to bring up was how the participation trophies, which is the Pro Bowl now, is continuing strong. Let's see here. Isaac Seumalo is in. TJ Watt was out. We knew that due to injury. Miles Killebrew is in as an alternate. Russell Wilson is in as an alternate. Patrick Queen is in as an alternate. I'm trying to think which other article I wrote. I think that's it. Did I name them all? Did I miss anyone? I'm not watching a freaking minute. And I said this on my Let's Ride podcast for tomorrow. The NFL, it does such a good job with making events like noteworthy and special that you want to watch. The Pro Bowl and the Pro Bowl games is the only thing that they have never capitalized on. It doesn't get good ratings. People watch, but it doesn't get good ratings. It's just, to me, it's unwatchable. Any thoughts on the participation trophies, Dave?
I mean, if I'm not going to watch Hard Knocks, there's no way I'm even going to watch something like this. No. And honestly, I don't like that they keep naming alternates that then become a Pro Bowler just because the guys in front of them don't want to show up and play flag football or things of that nature. I just think if they want to do this, make it a showcase, invite people, but take the label. Just don't do alternates for Pro Bowl at all. Just do the Pro Bowlers. Even the ones that are in the Super Bowl, all those things, that's your Pro Bowl team. You're not replacing people with people that you now call a Pro Bowl player. You just leave it. Now, if you want to invite other players, it's fine. Leave the label off of it and make it just a fun spectacle. It's supposed to be like the home run derby, something like that. But to me, I just get so sick of hearing, oh, wow, the ninth option at right guard in the NFC is now going to be a Pro Bowl. I mean, people complain that Russell Wilson made it this year. I mean, last year was Gardner Minshew, and the year before it was Tyler Huntley. That's how far they have to go down to actually get a quarterback to show up to these things. So that's why I'm just like, leave the labels out of it. And you can even invite more players to be involved if you want to do it. But I also think it would help if they did it back in Hawaii again.
Maybe. Bryan, thoughts on the Pro Bowl, or do you want to wait until we get to your thoughts?
Not only do I agree with everything that Dave said right here, there's a couple things that I'm thinking here. Not only invite more guys, but he mentioned the home run derby. You do not have on your resume, hey, I was in the home run derby. No one really, you have to win it to be on your resume. So that's what I'm thinking there. But yeah, if you can't make it, you don't go. If you can't make it, you don't get your Pro Bowl bonus. TJ Watt should not be paid a Pro Bowl bonus because he pulled out of this, injury or not.
Yeah.
They want these guys.
I don't know if
here.
Meaning if he has that in his contract.
Yeah, if he has,
I don't think he does.
Okay, yeah, but if you have those incentives, and guys, now the other thing, Russell Wilson's agent is going to be selling Pro Bowler Russell Wilson all the way. Next year, Isaac Seumalo's agent's going to be doing the same thing. We joked about that little picture that I made, but I made that just to show you how ridiculous this whole thing is, because I'm waiting to hear Broderick Jones announced next. It's not right. So maybe add a couple more, but if you don't go, that's who shows up, and that's what you play with, because most of it is skills competitions anyways now. And if they're playing flag football, they don't need 3 or 4 quarterbacks. Drake May's not a Pro Bowler. I know a Patriots fan that I do the Fans First Football show with. He's going to say Drake May's not a Pro Bowler. That's what I'm saying about these guys as well. And if you have to, go ahead and put an asterisk in your resume. You cannot put that you are a Pro Bowler. You can put that you're a Pro Bowler replacement, because you have All-Pro 1, All-Pro 2, second team All-Pro, and nothing else. But on your resume, it's only second team All-Pro. And I sparked something in Dave Schofield because he did the old praying. Yeah. He's ready to go.
Yeah. Am I good to go? Can I say something? I would be more likely to watch if they got it, if they actually, like I said, stop labeling people that come to fill in as Pro Bowlers. Get away from the football stuff. I want to see, someone said, I want to see it closest to the pin competition in golf. I want to see who could win a game of horse.
Family Feud.
Play a wiffle ball game. Do trivia. Play Jeopardy. I would rather see your football stars doing those kind of things than the fake football stuff that they're doing. I mean, to me, that would be fun. Something more like that. I would be more likely to watch that than what they're trying to do now that they took the helmets and the pads away. And the reason that was smart for doing that, because they stopped playing a real football game when agents are like, don't go out there and get hurt, which I understand because of the way the contracts are. So to me, find something else to do, play a 4-man scramble. You know what I'm saying? Jeff, can you think of it? Can you think of anything else that would be good?
Yeah. So what they do now, they've tried to do the games things. They're playing like dodgeball and stuff like that. They're doing that now. I don't watch. It's not intriguing.
Dodgeball was it.
For me, what I say is just tell the guys that you made the Pro Bowl, here you go. There's a $5,000 bonus or however much money you're giving them, whatever. But we're going to invite a specific group of people, specific reason. Bring back the quarterback challenge. Give me the footballs with the blue chalk. Give me the golf carts with the targets on the back. I just watched a clip of that earlier where it was Brett Favre, Drew Bledsoe, Cordell Stewart, and Steve Young chucking a football as far as they could. Cordell Stewart threw it 73 yards. Drew Bledsoe threw it 73 yards, and Brett Favre won it by throwing it 74. So, I'd rather watch that. And then, you bring it up. Let's do a longest drive. A lot of these guys are golfers. If you don't do golf, what do? Okay, let's have you guys play. Pickleball is a big thing with some of these players. Play a pickleball tournament. I would rather see these guys in a different setting than I would be watching them play flag football.
I think the dodgeball is one of the more popular things.
Yeah, I've never watched it, but yeah.
No, I haven't either. At this point, I would rather see Robert Kraft, Justin Tucker, and Deshaun Watson playing Twister with the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders.
Here it is. Let's get Corey Eckenroth. That's where that ends, and that's where this begins. Corey Eckenroth gives us $4.99 Pro Bowl fix. Play rookies and second-year players against practice squad players. That would be interesting.
In an actual game.
An actual game, yeah.
In an actual game. You know what? Yeah. Yeah.
And if no one knows what the Justin Tucker thing was, just do a Google search.
We're not talking about it. I had to do it, Jeff.
Yeah, I know you did. All right, let's do a real quick Brian's thoughts, and then we'll go to trivia. Brian, go ahead.
All right, so this week for bad memories, I want to talk about the great Pro Bowl moments that I experienced with my family. This is something that we would do every year, and it was a special event. My favorite Pro Bowl memory, I have none.
Well said. Well
Record,
said.
record time. Record
There
time.
you go. Love that memory. All right, Dave, what's the trivia?
Okay, what's the trivia? All right. Well, we just had our conference championship games. Okay. Unfortunately, it was once again not the Pittsburgh Steelers. But Brian told us the other, several weeks ago, and we should know this because the Pittsburgh Steelers have been to 8 Super Bowls. That means they have won 8 conference championship games. What NFL franchise has won the most conference championships?
New England.
New England, they've won
Yeah.
11. The Steelers are tied for second with 8, with 3 other teams. Who are those 3 other teams?
Dallas.
Dallas.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say Denver.
Denver.
I was going to say the Raiders, but I don't think they have 8.
No, I don't think they do.
So there's only one more, right?
San Francisco.
And it's San Francisco. Who is the team that has appeared in the most championship games of 19, but they've only won 8 because there's a lot of teams with not very good winning percentages.
How many does Buffalo have?
How many does Buffalo have?
Just curious.
Let's just see here.
I don't think
Buffalo, they are 4-4.
Right.
That is their record. They have won 4. They've appeared in 8. And remember, it was 4 in a row. Here's my question. Obviously, there's one team that has not ever appeared in a conference championship game. And you guys know who that is?
I mean, do we count the Houston Texans?
It's the Houston Texans. Yes. Okay. That's the only team that has not appeared in a conference championship game. Okay. So they don't count because they've never been there. What is the only NFL team never to lose a conference championship game?
I'm gonna say the Carolina Panthers.
No, I think they lost.
They lose in the championship.
I think they lost the year that the Steelers.
They've lost 2.
They've lost 2. Okay.
Yeah, the Steelers in Denver to go to Super Bowl 40. I think they lost that one.
Mm-hmm.
To the Seahawks. The Atlanta Falcons.
They are 2-2.
Okay. I know it's not the Philadelphia Eagles. We've seen them lose.
Has Seattle lost?
Yes.
Hold on. Wait, do I get to say the line? No, I don't. Shoot. Seattle has 1 loss.
Okay, so they've only lost.
That was the 1983 season to the Raiders, my favorite team. What about the Giants?
Because say what's going to blow your mind is this team is 5-0. 5-0 in conference championship games. That would be the New York Giants.
Wow.
Very good.
That was just a guess.
Yep.
There you go. Good. That's a good trivia. All right, let's do some final thoughts here and call it a show. Brian, go ahead.
All right. We are not going to fix this whole Steeler thing in one show. And no matter what we come up with, they're not going to listen because where they care about the well-being of their fans, they don't care about the emotional well-being of their fans. Because in the end, it's all about us going through the turnstiles, buying the merchandise, and these moves that I'm seeing made right now, mostly by Art Rooney II, makes me feel like they don't care about us. Here's the problem. I'm addicted, and I'm not going away, and I can't go away because I'm a romantic. I keep on thinking it's going to change. But maybe if that's the definition of insanity and it's not change, then I'm Steeler insane.
Okay. Dave, final thoughts.
All right, we are in the stage of we are bitter and frustrated Steelers fans. We are, rightfully so. Losing 5 games to end the season, that stinks. And as I've brought up, and once again, I keep bringing up KT Smith because I've said this before, and then I hear him say things on other shows that back up what I say. If you want to take the Steelers schedule, like remember the old school game Boggle, and you shake it up and twist it all around and put it out there together, and they beat the same teams and lost the same teams, but it wasn't in the order that it was, you're not feeling the same way as you are right now about the Steelers at the end of the season, even if they would have lost to the Baltimore Ravens. But it's that 5 in a row that really gets you. And what's so frustrating is that we don't have anything to change our mindset at this time. And we're stuck here. And the one thing that the Steelers could have done, the only thing you can do right now is all these teams with their coaching hires. They're firing coaches, hiring coaches, things of that nature. And the Steelers have done none of that. And that is why it's still frustrating. And the frustration continues because we've had no variables changed since the last time the Steelers held a lead in a football game, which was early in December. There's been no variables to make you feel better about that and that the direction things are going. So us sitting there and saying, oh, it's going to be all right going into next year. There's nothing that's happening right now to make you feel any better. I just wish that the Steelers would be open to the whole idea of, hey, they added a Brian Flores in late February several years ago because he was probably pretty cheap, but it was his opportunity to stay in the league. And it didn't make them a worse team by doing that. And then they lose Flores because he gets promoted to a defensive coordinator in Minnesota. And I mean, it was an upgrade. There's nothing they could do to stop him. So that's just the way the rules are, short of firing their own defensive coordinator and making him that job. So they lost him, and John Mitchell retired. And they never replaced those guys. They never did. So that's that's why I am frustrated, is I'm like, they're still running this. I still feel that they had an opportunity to do something that they've even done in the past. The Steelers defense, I mean, someone even said in the live chat earlier about John Mitchell that they've never really, brought it back in since then. That it's like as people go, they just kind of put their responsibilities on somebody else. So it's frustrating. I'm frustrated. We're all frustrated. So we get it. But hopefully there will be hope on the horizon before too long, because if not, it's going to be a long 9 months until the Steelers get back on the field in a meaningful football game.
Well said. All right, that does it for another Steelers preview podcast. We'll be back next week. Make sure you stick around to SteelCurtainNetwork.com and all of our podcasts on the Steel Curtain Network. But in the meantime, Dave, why don't you send us out like you always do?
Hey.
We'll see you next week on another Steelers preview podcast. Take it easy, everyone.
Steel Curtain Network. Get it.
Everybody else gets a little tight.